Hello, it's Delia. Thanks for clicking on. So today is it's about 10 o'clock on Thursday, January 7th. Um, the events of yesterday have had a huge impact on a lot of us. Um, any location in the U.S. I'm across the river in Arlington, Virginia, and have personal ties with the capital, friends of the family, and family friends and family members. And my one of my earliest memories in life was working in a political campaign when I was 6, stuffing envelopes and licking envelopes, working for the civil rights movement. So all of this is deeply uh, in my wheelhouse, in my area of concern. I know a lot of people who are in the New Age community and in the healing world, and who are very um, they talk a lot about community and how important community is. And what I've never understood is, how can you be interested in community and revile politics? Politics is the way our communities agree to operate. It's how we get along. So what's been happening is very not that. Um, and there's been a lot of things in politics that have not been about that for a long time. Fine. It's still about how we get along. It's how do we operate? Do we all stop at the red light or not? Right? Um, can I count on you to stop at the red light? Can you count on me to not run the red light? These are important questions about how we cooperate as a group. So I work with a lot of sensitive people, a lot of clairsentience, a lot of clairvoyant people, people with senses that they're aware of. You've been working on your sensitivity, your awareness, communicating with your body, being spirit with the body, being an infinite being with the body. Um, and then things like this happen. And it could have been any number of other things, but we'll use this one because it's so big and potent, and it's right now. And then it's like, well, this lie of a difference between a spiritual life and the regular life, the lie of a division between what you do for a living and what your energetic practices are, and making the other lie that's really uh, that what you do with your energy and your awareness and your healing is recreational. um, I hope you get a sense that your well-being and your working on um, your healing and investing in your energetic awareness uh, is not recreational. It's it's how you live, and the more you're aware of being an infinite being, not as an idea, but as a sensation, the less crazy making this kind of thing is. It's not that it isn't crazy making. It's just that you buy it less, right? I mean, one of the things that's been occurring to me is I'm getting ready to do 2 different workshops coming up this weekend, and they're both about um, they're both kind of, um, I'm trying to remember what I called them. It's not one of my strong suits, but they're both about remembering who you are. And everybody had, with this year, this time of the year, with the resolutions and all that idea, um, everybody's really familiar with the story of hardship or the stories of disappointment or the stories of trials. And they show up, they'll announce themselves with words like always, never, and forever. It's always been this way. I'm always this way. I never get what I want. It never works out. How it always has been is how it always will be. So whenever you hear always, never, or forever in your head, and there's a that particular deadening energy, that's a way for you to know that it's a tape. It's a program. And one of the big things, and when I'm working with people around living the life that you know is possible for you, that you came here to live, is that it's not realistic. You have to make a living, you have to pay the bills, you have to do what the man says to get paid when you're an employee. Money can only come to you through a job. There's just a tremendous amount of beliefs and conclusions and decisions, but it's all programming. And it only works when we work it, when we agree with it. And when I first start to work with somebody around beliefs and knowing this, and there's some techniques that go along with this. And generally, people often will say things like, "Yeah, but um, what does it matter if I know something is the truth or a lie, but everybody around me at the office says, you know, um, green is yellow and yellow is white. Then I have to go along with green is yellow and yellow is white. And so, what difference does it make if I have a sense of knowing something different than that?" And now that I'm saying it to you, maybe because you're not saying it to me, maybe you can hear how crazy that is, right? Um, if you're driving a car, by looking out the window, and maybe you've looked at a map to get a sense of where you're going and what roads you need to take, it's very different. That experience is very different than if you get into a car and just look at the computer screen next to the driving wheel. You'll have no idea how you got there. You'll have no idea how anything connects. You'll have no idea how the streets relate to each other, or how the streets relate to communities, or how you traverse. You have no personal knowledge, no real knowledge of how you got where you went, or what you traversed to get there. So, as an illustration, up until now, the world has been programming all of us to say, to believe, to live as though navigating through the computer, GPS, is a better way to operate than to be aware of your environment and to know where you're going and where you've been. See how that's crazy? If you follow the GPS, they know how to measure where you've been and to keep tabs on you. But if you have no GPS and you go somewhere because you know how to get there, they, there's no way to control that. There's no way to be in charge of you with that. So A way to think about the tools and techniques and the processes is that you're going to know, even without a map, how to get somewhere because you're going to be in the information loop. And your being in the information loop doesn't means they don't you don't need them, right? If you're the creator of your reality, then you're not waiting for somebody to pay you. You will do things and people will pay you, but you're not dependent. It's a different mindset. And if you're aware and you're in charge of knowing your environment and how to interpret, how to read where you are, then you can go anywhere. If you're only trained to the GPS, you can only go to a place that you can program the GPS to get you to. And that's just a kind of a pragmatic way to describe the difference between being connected to and knowing your own knowing, having your own information, versus upholding a system. Um, Institutions can only um, they can only survive if we choose to help them survive. We have to protect and defend them, to monitor them, to keep out the the choices that actually disintegrate the institution. If an institution is around um, cooperation and community building, then it's going to be destructive to that institution to take on um, a direction about war and armaments. It's a different brain, it's a different mindset, it's a different direction, and you have to choose, right? It's the same with your life. Do you choose to make everybody else happy, regardless of how miserable you are, or do you choose to help yourself flourish, not at the expense of anybody, but because you matter? Um, the way I was raised, there was, how my well being did not matter to some of my siblings. And so I had the impression over and over again that their well being, their fun, their ease was much more valuable than mine. And in time, I discovered that was kind of skewed. That was kind of crazy. Um, but what you grow up with is normal, and what's normal, it takes something to pop you out of it to realize that it might have been common for you, but it's not necessarily for your benefit. So everything that's happening, and we're using January 6, 2021 as an example. If you're waiting for or requiring somebody to explain to you what happened, or for you to reason it out, you will be in a state of agitation for much longer than is actually required. Because all you really need to know is that shit's crazy. And what can I create today? What can I do today? The whole thing about Gandhi and be the change that you want to see in the world means, what are you doing? What are you doing with your thinking? What are you doing with your mouth? What you say? And what are you doing with your action steps? There's been an inordinate amount of time spent on trying to make sense out of insanity. And let me give you the benefit of 15 years of Al Anon in a nutshell. The more you try to make sense of insanity, the more insane you will get. Um, and there's plenty of times when that's a viable thing to do to spend your time on. But I recommend, especially now, as it is 2021, as we are in this cusp of really awakening to a whole different reality, because the old reality is going to either kill us all or we're going to create a new reality. So, what do you want to do today? What do you want to create today? If a community of um, people living in a peacetime reality matters to you, then how do you do that? And I can't answer that for you. The whole point is that inside of you, not the trained part, not the programmed part, not the part that got good grades, not the part that makes your supervisors happy, but there is a part of you deep inside, maybe not so deep, maybe deep, that knows the difference between insanity, knows the difference between what's true and what's a lie, knows the difference between um, oppression and thriving, right? And as long as you're always making choices that have that thriving, that expansive, that possible feeling to it, that will always lead you to greater and greater you and greater living. And anything that is thwarting or oppressive, it'll have a physical sensation as I'm giving you these examples, or like your shoulders are up in your ears. All of those are clues that there's something crazy going on. And a lot of times it's the lie that the outside world is fine and neutral and not crazy. And all the crazy has to come in your own head. Not so. You can know what's crazy and what's not crazy. And you can know what's a lie and what's true. And you don't have to share any of this with anybody, but do start paying attention and valuing your sense of WTF. What's going on here? Is it crazy? Is it generative? Is it expansive? Is it true for me? Or is it debilitating and stopping and clumping and shutting down? And if it's the latter, if it's this shutting down stuff, you don't need to argue with it. You don't need to reason with it. You don't need to make sense with it. You don't need to communicate with it. You don't need to try to change it. You just need to stop trying to match its energy. I mean, really, understanding is like matching energies. It's like, okay, I don't need to figure this out anymore. I don't need to struggle with this anymore. That's basically what understanding is, at least the way we use it in our culture. And so instead of, and so really the reason so many of us have had that kind of rat brain where we have to understand something is, really underneath that is something deeper, like wanting to make sure you're not crazy, wanting to make sure that the way you're interpreting things has some semblance of reality to it. So you could give yourself the benefit of the doubt. I know, how's that for an odd answer? You could start to think, what's right about what's right about how I'm responding to this situation that I'm not getting. And then you just ask that more and more. You just ask it over and over. Like ask it 3 or 4 times in a row. And this is not like school. You're not waiting for an answer. You're just waiting for a loosening, right? So, what's right about how I'm responding to this? That's right. That's good for me. That's healthy. That's appropriate. And without waiting for an answer, you just keep leaning into what's right about this that I'm not getting. And the more you lean into that, what'll happen is things will start to loosen and relax. And then whatever hook you're hooked on can drop. And then you can get to a place where you can see, oh, my agitation and my fury has been right because this is not how things should be. This is not what governance looks like. This is not what fairness looks like. Remember, this is January 7th, so I'm still referring to January 6th. And once you get it that you're not wrong, all kinds of things can start to loosen and relax. And you can start to really comprehend things that understanding can never get you to. Not because you're not smart, but because thinking your way to things is a very different way of being than coming to understand things. And you know the difference. You know what I'm talking about. So, a question that you can ask right now, these days, because the people who are benefiting from this insanity are still benefiting from it today just as much as they were yesterday. And the causes of this insurrection energy have not dissipated, have not gone away, and they won't. So this isn't over. And so the question to ask that's really helpful at this point is to ask that question. So, truth, what's right about this that I'm not getting? And that when I can perceive, it changes everything dynamically. Yeah. Truth, what's right about this situation that I'm not perceiving? That when I can get it, when I can perceive it, it changes everything dynamically. Truth, what is right about this situation that I'm not getting? That when I can perceive, it changes everything dynamically. And just kind of float in that question and see what arrives, see what just bubbles up from inside of you. So it's not about thinking your way somewhere, it's about kind of clearing out some space. So some knowingness and some awareness can rise. Another really great question that I kid you not, I really ask you to start asking this question. If you want to change your life and the life of the world, start asking, how does it get any better than this? How does it get any better than this? How does it get any better than this? I guarantee you, the way to make things worse is to say things can't get any worse. The bottom will drop off like a New York second. It's just tremendous the kind of mayhem that that question invites. You know, everything is energy. So these questions are about inviting energy. And the more you're asking what's right about this, the more you're asking to be able to perceive what's right about this. There is something right about it. Not that people are struggling, not that people are getting hurt. That's not what's right about this. There's something else, usually something bigger. And as someone who's had a lot of PTSD and who's been through a lot of really awful things, I can tell you, if you ever ask or say it can't get any worse, it always will. And equally, I can tell you from experience, from my own and a lot of other people's, the more you're asking what's right about this, the more you're going to start to see what's right about this. And then you can live in it. And then you can be that energy in all of the places that you engage in. And it kind of, the pebble, a pebble in the pool, it spools out. There's a lot of nuttiness going on, and there's a lot of change, and there's a lot of examples of why we didn't want things to change. Leonard Cohen has a song about the cracks or where the light gets in. I think Plato said it originally. But things are cracking. It's a lot like the ice breaking in fall, in spring. I used to watch Northern Exposure, and they talked about the ice breaking, how it makes all these noises, and there's nothing so violent as spring in the West. And being live is like that. You don't know what to expect. That's part of why people have wanted to be in reruns for the past 20 years. Just give me something to expect, and then I'll know what to predict and what to think and what to. But when you get all that, what to expect, and you end up just creating smaller and smaller and smaller lives and smaller and smaller and smaller possibilities and worlds, and then everybody forgets. There's like this collective amnesia that there's so many more possibilities than what we've been told, and there's so many more possibilities than the things that are happening right now. And from a bigger picture, the things that are happening right now are actually serving, or they're part of this breaking up of the limitations so that we can create a way of living together that actually generates more possibilities and stops cutting them off. There's more possible than we've been led to think. There's a lot more possible than what we've been led to think. So if you just stick with truth, what's right about this that I'm not getting? Or truth, what's right about me that I'm not getting? That when I can perceive, it changes everything dynamically. And what's right about this? This is another way of saying it. What else is possible? That's a good one. What else is possible now? Instead of conclusions, decisions, assumptions about what just happened and what that means and all the limitations, conclusions, decisions, assumptions are all limitations. Instead, just ask, okay, so what can happen now? What's possible now? What else is possible now? And how does it get any better than this? How does it get any better than this? And just ask that enough to where your shoulders come out of your ears and you get a sense of, I don't know, how else does it get any better than this? Because life is not punishing. Life is pretty awesome. All right. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you soon. How does it get any better than this?